Table is super excited to have you all on. William, you are a returning guest. I love it. Thank you for coming back on the show. We'll just start down here and go down the aisle. Ed, quick intro.
I'm Ed Clark. I'm the CIO for the California State University system, and I've been in my role for about 3 years.
Let's go, California. William.
I'm William Huang. I'm the Deputy Chief Information Officer for the University of Texas system. Been in my role for about 8 years.
Yeah, and I'm Chuck Romero. I'm a solutions consultant leader for Palo Alto, and my team and I focus only on education systems in California, and it's a pleasure to be on the podcast with you all today.
I'm super excited. And wait, hold up, does your jacket say public sector?
Yes, it does.
Oh,
yes, it does.
Does this one say public sector?
No, it does not.
We're gonna have a conversation.
We got to get a better one. We'll figure that out.
And are you in Pasadena? Is that right?
Yeah, I live in Southern California.
Okay, awesome. So we're pretty close. William, if you ever come to Southern California, look us up. Ed, so you're running IT for 23 campuses.
Yes.
Did I get that right? 23?
Yeah, 23 campuses, 22 universities.
Yep. Okay, 23 campuses, 22 universities. Is that around 460,000 students?
That's right, yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah.
So we talked about a Wall Street Journal article titled "Why AI Will Widen the Gap Between Superstars and Everybody Else," basically predicting that AI creates winners and losers based on who has access. And I wanted to hear your approach. How are you thinking about this?
That digital divide aspect was so important to our AI strategy because what we were seeing in our community that is we had faculty and staff and even students buying their own subscriptions, but because the CSU is 50% first in family, 30% Pell Grant recipients, we're going to leave some of our community behind by just letting that happen. The other thing we were seeing in our 22 universities, some of them were negotiating to get their own contracts with OpenAI or Microsoft or even Meta. And again, what we'd be seeing from that is a spread of different kinds of tools, but also some campuses not being able to afford to participate, which would leave some of our community members behind. That's why we decided to make sure we addressed any kind of digital divide by giving a common baseline, like we're going to give ChatGPT for everybody. And that's what we did as a system.
So Chuck, that's a lot of students, and I'm sure we have some researchers, we have faculty members. How are you thinking about it from the security end? We're deploying, we've got the innovation, but we also need to think about the security.
Security is always a challenge, right? Anybody that says security is easy is either never done it before or doesn't have an idea of what actually security is. So when Ed's talking, I'm always thinking about, you have your students, 460,000, your faculty, so say 500,000 to 600,000 endpoints are just out there, things, right? And it's a scale conversation, more so than anything, is how do you scale security architecture to meet the need? And traditionally, like traditional methods of security, like firewalls, obviously Palo Alto does firewalls, great, awesome, thumbs up. But that doesn't really apply in this circumstance. We're talking about people accessing systems outside of your network, outside of your control. Where do they do that from? So what we've done is go look at how do you deploy security in a consistent, scalable, and easy manner that can be used anywhere. And we've shifted our focus away, not necessarily away from firewalls, but more towards the point of access, which is the browsers. And everyone is using browsers nowadays. How much of your job is now done inside of a browser? Chrome, Edge, whatever it might be. 85%, 100% most likely. So thinking about scale, thinking about AI, what goes into AI? Data, context, whatever it might be. What runs the AI? The systems we were talking about off camera, all those things are now coming into play that are all accessed through a browser. So what we've done, or are doing, is transitioning away from, hey, big iron, pipe everything through a big iron, we'll do inspection, all that kind of stuff, going towards, why don't we just do that at the browser level? It's getting fully decrypted anyways, so it's being presented to you. So we're thinking about point of access, identity, and device. That's where we're focusing now. And with AI, there comes its own unique challenges, as we all have probably seen in our own personal lives, is using it for fun, using it for harm is what's happening more so in our industry. And trying to figure out that gray line in between has been a challenge, but we're doing it. I think to answer your question directly, it's the scale question, and we know that these are education systems. We know this not unlimited budgets, as we were talking before, that always comes into play. But how do you do it at scale and at speed, the speed of AI? It's through a browser. That's really how you do it.
At that scale, can you just talk a little bit more about the relationship side of it, how the importance of the relationship? There's the security technical piece, but there's also the human aspect. There's a lot of students, a lot of campuses, a lot of universities. Love to hear how Palo works with the CSU.
Yeah, so like when Ed, when we were working with your teams, we proposed a challenge. How do we solve data loss or data risk, data exfiltration? We want our students and our faculty to be able to use these tools, but in a more secure way. So how my team looks at it is we're consultants and architects. We look at the problem, go, okay, what do you have today? What are you guys running? All that kind of stuff, do our due diligence. And from there, your use cases really stem around, we want to enable our faculty and staff to do their jobs in the most efficient way possible without introducing the typical security friction that you might see. So the solutions or tools are easy to find, right? Okay, browser security, here's how you do it, blah, 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 blah. It's implementing them in practice. So standardizing on a tool set that will scale with you, but also provide the same level of forensics for your SOC and being able to do your research. So with working with the CSUs, we're thinking broader than just AI. It's more the full picture of what you're looking at. I'd ask you guys, I want to learn just like as much as I can from you, is how much risk do you apply to your data policies and allow towards ingestion and egression out, right? So that's what I'm thinking about AI, is how do we provide you with a level of visibility to give you the tools to make a decision?
And that's why in our chatgpt.edu space, we have our own private instance where OpenAI is not allowed to access it, third parties can't access it. And that way we're protecting intellectual property, and we can do things like, here's some student records, what are the patterns you're seeing in there? That protects us from that perspective. But to your point about bringing data in and out of that is what we need to watch out, and that's why we have Palo Alto and other partners helping us, making sure that doesn't get out there.
And you actually brought up a good point, and this is another aspect of AI. I'm talking about all AI access and the ability to get data in, data out, research, whatever you're doing, but also the AI algorithm itself and the large language model itself. We also are paying attention to that side of the fence. And we have tool sets that I won't dive into right now, but we're looking at code injection through prompts. We're looking at code called evolution. As the AI engine runs, it becomes smarter, just like Skynet. And you got to pay attention to that stuff simply because if someone enters student records or someone in finance and payroll is trying to do a payroll scrub, that data then gets inputted, it modifies the language, and then that impacts everyone else using it. If you think about traditional like network segmentation, I'm going to put everyone in their own VLANs or subnets or whatever it is, that same theory can be applied to AI. And that's where our heads are at, is okay, you can control data going in with regex and discovery and pattern matching and all that kind of stuff. But really what happens with it once it gets in there? Where does it go? How does it sprawl? How does it change? And those are the areas that are the more advanced security areas that we're focusing on and developing right now.
I love it. William, I'd love to get your thoughts on all this.
Yeah, no, it's spot on. You've got to think of it holistically, right? So if you think of our academic campuses or health centers, you've got a lot of devices that students, stakeholders, patients bring on. So you've got to find an equitable way to give them access to your platform. And then for those that have affiliation, how do you do it securely, right? So you can't assume that you control the entire environment because there's a lot of devices that are coming on and off campus every day.
Yeah. So I want to go back. So last year you came on episode 201, a year already. Wow. You said it was the year of the student. Was there a new phrase for this year, the next 12 months?
I always think it's the year of the student because that helps us keep centered. But being here at EDUCAUSE in terms of all of the activities, certainly AI's on the forefront. But let me first talk a little bit about our footprint. We've got 13 UT campuses. We serve about 260,000 students. We've got 160,000 clinicians, faculty, staff. So it's a big footprint. So for us in IT, it's always keeping the lights on, the engines running. But I think if I think of the theme for this year, it's change, right? Embracing change. It's coming faster than we know it and what we can be prepared for.
And not just digitally. There's been a lot of, you call it mergers? I don't know what you call this. I was going to say acquisition, but the medical schools coming in, there's a lot moving on. Do you want to share a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So in September, we announced the alignment and the merger of our two UT campuses in San Antonio. The University of Texas San Antonio Health and UT San Antonio on the academic side is now one entity. Very large merger, if you will, but really it's intended to strengthen the footprint that we have in San Antonio to be able to serve the community better. In terms of what's happening on that campus, it's been amazing the past year. A brand new 100-bed hospital opened in the past year, and then we're about to open a new Center for Brain Health to help with some terrible diseases like dementia and Alzheimer's. So really exciting things happening in San Antonio.
So 70% of the UT system is medical schools, is that right?
It's health related, right? So if you
okay.
think of clinical care, medical education, medical research, translational research, so it's a broad area, right? So we've got 13 campuses, but if you think of our historic split, we're academic versus health, there's more of a blurring because when you blend the two San Antonio campuses, is it a health campus? Is it academic center, medical center? Is it academic campus? So yes, it's a UT institution. And we did similar things with Tyler a few years ago. UT Tyler and UT Tyler Health similarly merged a few years ago. So while we're only 13, we're still a pretty sizable enterprise in Texas.
I'd love to hear, this is very interesting because you've got the traditional schools, health related, there's different regulations, HIPAA, like the cybersecurity concerns are very broad. Do you just want to kind of maybe touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, so I'm listening to you talk and I think about organizations that have gone through, I wouldn't call it mergers or acquisitions, just consolidation, like trying to figure out how do we run our business in a way that's more sustainable. I always think about risk, governance, risk, and compliance. And that's where it's a great starting point. In the organizations that have gone through those processes or change, evolution, if you will, as long as you have a good foundation of getting everyone to the table, discussing the program or the project at hand, and you don't treat cybersecurity as the afterthought. It has to be built in natively into whatever you're doing.
Number one,
I think about like immediately going, okay, let's do a risk assessment of the organization. Let's figure out where our gaps are, our differences are. That doesn't mean it's good or bad. It's just simply what are the differences and which one do we want to standardize on, or do we need to think broader about beyond just our immediate focus. So when I'm listening to you talk, I'm thinking you got medical researchers, you got your education platforms, you have the doctors. Patient safety is always patient care, patient safety, number one. I started my career in healthcare, so I'm very familiar. And I just think about all those things. It's all governance, risk, and compliance. That's the starting point. And that's how you really evolve your security practices. It's always like business risk. Like how much do we want to lock things down before we're going to inhibit progress or the business needs? So that's what I'm thinking as you guys go through just think about leveraging folks like ourselves to help, because that's what we're here to do. It's not always about the money. It's always about how do we do things better. And I always think, I love how you're talking about the students. It's always a year of the student. It's always a year of just making the world better and that it's more safe and secure.
I love that. Ed, you partnered with Governor Newsom's office. He brought you, the CSU faculty, California's top AI companies together to form the AI Workforce Acceleration Board. First, give us kind of a sneak peek behind the scenes of what problem are you trying to solve with this and the impact that you would like to have.
In the same way that it's the year of the student for us, it's always the year of the student. What was actually happening is, you mentioned how fast things are changing. It's happening so quickly. Fields are changing, industries are changing, how we do teaching and learning changing so rapidly, and AI is a huge element of that, right? So we had these AI firms, started with the tech firms, and they were going to the governor's office and saying, we're worried that universities aren't preparing students well for how rapidly the workforce is changing. And so they approached each of the systems, the community colleges, the CSUs, and the UCs, said, what are you going to do about this, the governor's office? And so I got a bunch of collaborators in a room, and we came up with this idea, let's get the governor's office, let's get these big tech firms, let's get our faculty, and even some of our academic leaders, presidents, provosts, in a room and say, how could we better prepare our students for this rapidly evolving future? And so I went out and recruited all of these members, and there was a concern, is this gonna actually work? Because a lot of these are competitors. You have Microsoft and Google and AWS and OpenAI and NVIDIA and all these other folks in the room. And then the faculty were saying, will they even understand our concerns? But it turns out that having this big problem, like we are creating the future of higher education and how we're going to prepare students, that ties everybody together to say, yeah, because these students are going to be your employees, right? These are the students that we want to have. They're going to be the future of the United States. That has tied everybody together in a way that's been really effective. Our first meeting was around, we had a student panel, and the students were, hey, we're hearing that we need to know how to use these tools when we graduate, but our faculty are saying, don't use it, it's cheating, those kinds of things, right? But it was good to have that student voice in this room where everybody can hear it and say, oh, I get it. Yeah, that is weird. We can't ignore that. The second meeting of this group was around the faculty point of view, which was, look how hard it is to do teaching and learning now, like where every test is now meaningless, every quiz has an answer in your Chrome browser, right? And it's like, how do we do teaching and learning in this environment? That's a big challenge. And then the third meeting that we just had was around the government perspective. We have one of LinkedIn's economists on there, governor's perspective about workforce, what's happening, LinkedIn's patterns that they're seeing and those trends. And then the next meeting we're having is going to be about the employer perspective. So that creates an awareness across all parts of this group to have this conversation.
A couple quick follow-ups on that. So you signed an MOU and you had to go you went to go speak to the California legislature, right?
AI Oversight Committee, yeah, yes.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about that, because that's not a conversation that is the same as faculty or, right? So that's, you got to really speak to the benefits, right?
So I think that, we are just like everybody else. There's all these benefits we're trying to mine out of AI, and there's a lot of concerns about safety and security. In fact, there was a story about, I think, a high school student committed suicide when they were interacting with ChatGPT. So the question was like, how are you protecting the health and safety, mental well-being of your students, which of course is first and foremost. We're, again, always about the student. And this is a tough question. These new technologies come out, and of course you could say, well, you could use social media and do bad things there too, but this is a new technology. What are we going to do about it? And that's why these partnerships are super important. So we've been working hand in hand with OpenAI. What are we going to do about this together? These are the things we want to see in our environment. And they've now reached a point where like they see someone's in mental distress, they'll just exit you out. You should be seeking professional support. And this is not the platform to do that, is where we ended up. But that's an example of the kinds of questions come up. Other questions about environmental impact. I'm sure William is hearing all the same things in his environment, right? But all of us that are here at EDUCAUSE are dealing with the same issues, and that's partly why we're here, to discover the solutions together. Yeah.
You brought up a couple points that I love them because that's exactly why we all exist here. So we're just trying to make it all better and improve. A couple things that you guys might not know that we do, and my team focuses on. We had a body of students come to our HQ and ran them through a day in the SOC and had them do a cyber threat hunt and figure out things and learn. And we did it with the K-12 group, but we'd also do it with universities like your size and the higher education systems. And for us, like all my team were practitioners. They worked in school systems. They all came from your guys' side of the fence. And what I find interesting is like they're still focused on the students. Like this, exactly what you're talking about is like, how do we educate people for the future? Because at one day we're all going to get old enough to where we don't want to work anymore, and then they're going to be taking care of us, and that's going to be great.
I'm already there.
Yeah, I'm not far behind you. But the idea is that we're always looking ahead. How do we develop the next generation or the next set of individuals that are going to take the reins and bring this forward? And you also talked about a bunch of big OEMs out there that really are also shaping the world that we live in. And I would say, at least from what I've seen and all the conversations that we're having with the education systems, the conversations are changing. It's no longer, oh, AWS is doing this, Google, OCI, they're all doing these different things. It's now going toward, all right, how do we get everyone together? How do we work together? How do we do this together? Because at the end of the day, AI is not beholden to some type of hyperscaler. It is whatever it can be. So it's going to hit all systems. It's going to touch all things. Most people now are going to use it. So we have to partner together. And on the topic of partnerships, we have design partnership programs that Palo Alto offers, where you help shape the future of the product or the solution set. So an example would be, it's like Prism Browser, for instance, is the browser security platform I was talking about. We've engaged several higher education systems and large K-12 systems to be design partners. Help us shape this product and this platform to meet your needs. Same thing with SOC modernization and all those tools that we leverage to investigate potential incidents or breaches or whatnot. It all matters because you were the ones using it. So we want to make sure the tool sets meet the need. So in case of partnerships, I highly recommend everyone leverage your OEMs. They're there not just to sell you something, they're there to help. And you can really help shape how the world functions.
Should I talk about the micro internships, or is that from you? Because one of the things that we were noticing, because we have, part of our strategic plan is this, we're calling it the CSU Promise. And it says, the CSU Promise is that by graduation, every single student will have an opportunity for their first career job, or they will go into grad school. And that's a huge promise, even for 1,000 students, like 460,000 students. How do you do that? And so one of the things that we were talking about, we noticed that internships, there's these high stakes internships, like you get Deloitte. 1 out of 100 students might get a Deloitte internship, right? And they get paid a lot of money. What happens to the other 99? We have to worry about that because we said all of them, right? So one of the models we're working on is this micro internship thing where it's 2 weeks, a paid project. They can work for Palo Alto, learn how to use those AI tools in that space. They get paid. If it's $25 an hour for 20 hours, $500, it can make a huge difference in that student because they did something for Google 1 month. They did something for Palo Alto next month. That becomes a very powerful resume by the time they've graduated to show that they've done useful projects using many different tools at many different organizations. And
that's
so many
fantastic.
of our partners
Yeah.
are working
Yeah,
with us on
and
that
like,
front. So,
for instance, like Palo Alto,
Yeah.
I know we have our academy program where we get fresh graduates into it. They get taught up on the solution sets and learn. And I know a lot of the other OEMs have the same kind of programs, but I really like what you're talking about, and I'll actually take that as a note to bring it back to the big bosses. Food for thought for your organizations and others that are maybe listening to this in the future. We do run special workshops for organizations where if you want to bring students in and get them engaged, to do like a JSOC or something like that, where get them engaged on not just like tools, but how to do the jobs and maybe it might find interesting. And we run those alongside your practitioners as well. So you're really crossing lines, IT departments, security departments, helping out the student population. And it's not to show how cool we are, it's more about talk to each other. These are the people that you're protecting. Also, these might be the people that are also breaking the fine line of cybersecurity. So we'd happily engage in those efforts with your teams, and we do them all the time. It's a fun day. Spend a day, break some stuff, learn how to fix some stuff, and how things work.
Sounds fantastic.
Yeah. So I'll touch base with you guys.
Add to that, at EDUCAUSE, I was presenting with Vanessa Keenan from UT San Antonio about UTSA's partnerships. So similarly to the micro internships, UTSA has a partnership with ServiceNow. So all their students get to take the ServiceNow ITSM training modules, and then if they complete all the modules, they're certified in ServiceNow. So they've got useful skills, whether they work for UT or the private sector, they're at least familiar with the ITSM products.
That's right.
So,
Yeah.
I love that you brought up the CSU Promise, because I think too, I've had just an awesome experience traveling around the country doing tech tables. And so I've been to the SOC in San Antonio, so I've been there. I've had the opportunity when I threw an event in Houston. I had the future information technology professionals come out from Rice University, and I had all the CIOs hand out their business card to all the kids. They were counting them like it was $100 bills. Like, it was awesome. But I like this micro internship. It puts a lot less pressure on, I need to land this job at Palo that I might not even like, or maybe I do love it.
I don't know how you guys all started your careers, but I sure didn't start it in security. I grew up in construction, building houses, just working with my hands, and over time, life happens, and here you are. But I can't tell you, I always look personally, I got 2 little kids at home, and what's it gonna be like in 15, 20 years when they're going into education systems potentially, and what's that gonna look like? What are the career choices you can make? It's gonna be different than it is right now. So like that really hits home, and the way you think about it is, did you start your career in tech? No. Like,
I wanted to go to the NBA.
yeah, see, like it's like, I wanted to be a Dodger, maybe I'd be in the World Series right now. I don't know, but at the same time, it's great to see that, and great to see the opportunities. And I know me growing up, companies weren't doing that now. And now it's different. Now it's very open and trying to find ways to keep people educated. It's wonderful.
And beyond the lower risk, because these companies, if you're one of these students that gets an internship in Seattle with AWS, you're getting paid a real good salary, and they're paying for your apartment, all this. That's a lot of expense for AWS. So if it doesn't work out, that was a lot of investment. Here you're saying, look, I've got this short engagement, and can you deliver this project? And to your point, the student may not like it, or AWS doesn't like it, or it could work out and they can find a different kind of student they would have never had a connection with to say, yeah, you would be a great employee here. The other thing that it allows for is small businesses are going to be, like small and medium businesses, they're always talking about every student that comes out of college wants to work for a Google or a Microsoft. They don't even think about us, the local name your shop.
Absolutely.
And so this is another way that we can engage our students with those companies and those firms as well.
Hey, I'm a small business owner. Why don't you think about tech tables, right? Do you want to edit the podcast? Or you can stand behind that video camera over there.
Right.
Yeah.
Like what you're talking about is like entrepreneurship, right? And getting the students nowadays, forget about the big fancy logos and all that kind of stuff. Like, grassroots it, start from the ground up and create your own organization. And I think we go back on the AI topic, there's a use case right there. Let AI help build your company for you. So you don't have to know it all, but you got to be smart enough to, right?
And these small firms, we'd like to get in this AI space. We'd like to have a custom GPT, but we don't have, where's our talent base to do that? This could be a way to connect them. Yeah.
And it's like on that final, at least from my side, is like we have the Palo Alto Academy program. It's based out of Plano, so close in the University of Texas area. And it helps new students, new graduates come in. They're in the program, I think, for a couple years, somewhere around that. But they get the direct engagement with organizations like yourself and all the other different types of verticals that are out there. They learn architecture, they learn networking, they learn data center tech. But it also gives them experience about how to communicate, how to engage, how to collaborate, which is a big skill set that you can't learn from a computer. You can only learn it from doing like things like this. So it's a great program, highly recommended.
I love that. So one of the areas we talk about on tech tables a lot is leadership. It's a big piece. Everyone sometimes, I even had one time I did this at an event, And someone afterwards told me, you're totally wrong. It's not about leadership. It's about the technical work. I coach high school basketball, and I can draw X's and O's up 7 days from Sunday, and I will tell you, if the team doesn't buy in, it doesn't work. And then sure enough, I'm reading a quote from Coach K, formerly at Duke, and he's like, that's the hardest part. I can get guys to play. Do they want to play together? Do they even want to be teachable or humble? He's like, I'm trying to win national championships. That's kind of how it goes. So I'd love to hear, we heard Josh earlier, Josh Bright from UCSB, talk about the Moore's leadership program. I'd love to know just the impact on your leadership journey and what that's meant as far as growing the leaders within CSU. So not just you, but really multiplying.
I think growing leaders is what we want to do with our students, and I think that, I would say that two things that just immediately jumped into mind when you talked about leaders. One is, if you have that clarity of focus, hey, let's work together to change higher education to better prepare students, there's hardly anyone that would say no to that. That's how I was able to get these big executives to say, yeah, I will be part of that. That is a powerful mission, that's a powerful calling. And so if you have a clear vision, that helps bring people together because you're trying to work together to solve a common good. The other thing is, at every point along the way, things were, we don't like this, we don't want to do that. There's a lot of changes, and if you can take the feedback well and flex with the moment and be adaptable, you can still build progress along the way that really, these are some of the leadership lessons that you have to be adaptable, you have to go with the flow, and you'll discover things along the way that help, again, pursue that higher goal. And then to your point about developing leaders, once you have that kind of goal, I'd say that like every university system, our universities were largely operating like independent empires, right? But once we started saying, hey, this is our CSU Promise, it's not just mine, it's yours too, and we all have the same CSU Promise, that again ties everybody together. This is what we're here for. How are we going to achieve that? We can't do that alone. So that brings people together, and that makes us all leaders in this effort.
I'd love to hear just some of the leadership on the Texas side of the house.
Yeah, sure. It's about collaboration. It's, as Ed said, it's not working in silos. So for us, it's collaborating with our 13 IT leadership teams and really understanding the mission at the campus level, right? So if you look at our world-class healthcare organizations, MD Anderson in Houston, very different mission than maybe our UT Permian Basin in West Texas. So understanding what the mission needs are at the campus, understand the ultimate customer, the student, the patient, the research sponsors. So for us, it's about understanding the balance between what the campus needs are from technology infrastructure versus what are the real outcomes and outputs that make a difference for the mission and really the end customers, if you will. So for me, it's not easy. It's a balancing act because you've got different priorities. We talked off camera about budget challenges. So I think the idea is, how do you do things at scale? How do you do things that make a difference and not try to boil the ocean, so to speak?
Yeah, that's really good. I say this all the time on the podcast, but I think sometimes folks gloss over, you hear collaboration and you're like, hey, yeah, you just collaborate and it's really easy. It's actually very difficult when it just starts growing. There's a lot of different parties. They have their own agendas and motives, and they're also busy. And so how do you bring people together? How do you kind of get the buy-in? You might ruffle some feathers too, right? And how can you keep driving this forward? It's a lot harder, which is one of the reasons I actually talk about it. You can buy the Prism browser, that's pretty easy, but getting buy-in?
Deploying it, maintaining, just consistency, that's hard.
Yeah, it's real tough. I'd love to hear on your end around the private-public partnership that you have across the state of California.
So that's a big question. I'm only focused on education systems, but what I can talk about is spirit of collaboration and seeing like projects and momentum shift and move, where we've seen successful organizations deploy tough technology or we'll call it new technology, like emerging technology is what we were supposed to call it. The ones that do it well take the time to build those collaborative teams. They actually have, you could call them like programs set aside or tiger teams or whatever you want to call them, but their purpose is to work together to find the solution that's going to fit best for the organization. The egos are set aside. Doesn't matter if you're a network technician or a security architect or data center or cloud architect, doesn't matter. Here's the goal, here's what we're trying to do. A good PMO team cannot be understated by any shape or form, but the success comes from the collaboration. It is not easy. Of course, everyone has their own priorities, their own agendas that they're trying to get across. And to that point, when you leverage teams like Mars, like the other big 5 tech, use them. That's what they're there for. And if you can integrate those teams into your strategy, into your development, that's where we see progress. A good example of this could be with your team, Ed. So we've been working with your teams we did our big EA last year. It was fantastic. Thank you for trusting us to continue the cybersecurity deployment. But also, your teams were investigating, how do we do this better or differently or extend towards AI? And that's where the browser conversation came in. That's what I was talking about earlier, it's just that foresight to think about, we know things are changing. We know we're not the experts in it. And we know there's other organizations that can support us. So in terms of the state of California and what we're seeing across the board, it's those organizations that have the foresight to know we aren't the experts, but we know people that can help us become the experts. And those are the ones that are successful. So like with your team, it's been great working with everyone. And I know we're going to have big plans here coming up in the next 6 months, but it's more about the communication, the collaboration, the consistency. It's all fantastic. The moment that it stops, or the moment that it gets, I don't like saying the word budget, but the budget cuts happen, or reprioritization, whatever you want to call it, that doesn't mean we can stop working on the actual project. No, let's keep going. Let's figure it out. So when time comes and you're ready, guess what? We've already got the groundwork developed. And I think it's just an investment of time, obviously, energy, but also like foresight to really think ahead. And that's where we see the biggest push. It's like thinking ahead is the big key. We can't keep doing things the way they were traditionally, like the segmented CSU system, or you have 13 individual things come together to be one. That's hard. That's very difficult. Everyone has budgets, everyone has priorities, everyone has conflicting thoughts on how that should happen. But having the CSU's Chancellor's Office come in and say, hey, this is the CSU Promise, this is what we're doing, this is how we're going to go do it, that helps. Sometimes you just need to have someone come in and say, this is the plan.
Yeah.
Right.
And Chuck, I'd say on top of what you said about having strong project management, making sure you've got good change management, technical change control to turn things on, but more, is the organization ready? Having someone who's actually thought about the culture of the enterprise and where are some areas you can get good change agents that can be evangelists and not just have things die on the vine.
You're speaking my language a little bit there. So that's an area I cut my teeth on the operations side was change control. And you see under the covers a little bit, like what's happening with the organization. And that's where if you have a great collaborative team that can focus on just, hey, this is a change we want to do. This is why, here's the risks involved. Here's how we're going to do it. What do we think needs to be better about this? Having that like more positive and progressive conversation versus, oh, do we need to have that? Why is it being done? We shouldn't do that during this time. Like it needs to be more insightful and progressive versus the why nots, because that's where we see the outdated code happening and all of a sudden you're hitting bugs and it's not keeping up, and we have the actual challenges that incur downtime, and no one wants that kind of stuff. So I couldn't agree more with the change control aspect of that.
Turning the corner towards the end of this conversation, Ed, one of the things that really stuck out to me was that you were an English major.
Yes.
And Josh was a philosophy major, turned CIO. That's crazy. And so you're also teaching at Cal State Fullerton too. I'd love to hear, I think that provides like a lot of empathy that you would have. You're both faculty and you're on the other side of the house. Can you just maybe talk about those two unique roles that you're able to bring as you're thinking about pushing the bleeding edge of technology throughout the CSU system?
I'll say first from the teaching side, I have had some angry faculty kind of corner me and say, this AI thing is terrible, you must stop it, and how dare you, and all these other things. And then when they learn that, I'm also teaching, and I will share that. Actually, I'm going through the same struggle, right? I inherited this course, they had all these quizzes, and the students can get an answer just from their browser. You don't even have to, just automatically fills in the answer. And so what it means is you have to change everything, how that course was designed. You have to think about how you're going to assess their learning and all these. And so I'm going through the same painful process they are. That helps build that credibility. Okay, but one thing that I have been saying over and over again is if you're going to be an instructor in this world, if you're going to be a faculty member and you watch the world change, we have to prepare our students for that. So we can either choose to participate in helping this technology, shaping this technology to serve our needs, or we can watch it just go take off in its own way. Either way, it's going to happen. Our role is to participate and prepare our students. So I'd say that's from the teaching and learning side. Now, I will say that the most important thing I'm seeing from my students, I'm teaching at Cal State Fullerton, and again, our students, many of the ones I'm teaching at night, right? So all of these are working, they've been working their job all day. Now they're coming and taking this course in information systems. And their main concern is like, first of all, some of them are when they graduate, they want to get a better job. That's the reason why they're in college. I want to get a better job. I want to provide for my family. Or they're trying to reskill to get, again, they're trying to do something better with their lives. And their concern now is, hey, I'm not sure how easy it is to get these jobs when I graduate. again, having that empathy for these people are here, they're paying tuition so they graduate and get a meaningful job and a meaningful career. Preparing, I think any faculty member, any instructor that's really faced with that would have to have a lot more empathy about this is part of the future. I have to help them figure this out. And that's actually why I continue to teach, even though I have a full-time job as a CIO, yes. So.
Seems like you got a lot of free time to just go do teaching and whatnot. That's great.
Yeah, I do Thursday nights in the fall and Monday nights in the spring. Yeah. So but just that one course adds a whole lot of extra hours to your week, as you point out, yeah.
You might have to ask Ed if any more staff members are cornering you. You might have to ask Chuck to come.
Call the help desk. Yeah, I mean, what you're talking about is I always think about education and learning. Everyone learns differently, but the key is you got to be open to it. And university systems, this is what your university is on the edge of research, advancing society and all that kind of stuff. So when it comes to technology, even in my own life, personal life, you always think about, everyone's so resistant to these things, and rightly so, right? If it's something that you're not familiar with. But at the same time, is you have a choice. Either you learn it or you don't. What happens if you don't? What happens if you do? And weigh those options, and it's very important. Yeah, it's great. I didn't know you were a teacher also. That's awesome. Yeah.
Awesome. As we round out, I would just love to hear from each of you. What's one piece of advice that you would give to a rising technology leader?
Let's go ahead. I'll get us kicked off is people are still people. Everyone learns differently, everyone works differently, and we live in a world where it's so easy to categorize everyone into certain buckets or things or ideas. Just take a step back. We're all just people. We're all trying to support our families, do what's best. I work at a company that just wants to make the world safer. Sure, it has a big logo. That's the mission, just make the world safer, that's it. Bring it back down. It doesn't need to be high intensity all the time, high stress. Everyone has lives and personal lives, so treat everyone with respect. Treat people as you would like to be treated. Don't forget the basics and the fundamentals. That's all. So there you go.
I think my advice would be present in the moment, engage, interact. Everyone's on your own journey, but the journey may not be linear, right? So I think to your point, as you interact and build the network and cultivate ideas, people sometimes be very open-minded. What you think may be wrong or right, just based on who you meet with, you may learn new things. To me, the world's open book, so be open-minded and most importantly, be present, be engaging.
Yeah, I would share one of the lessons from our AI Workforce Acceleration Board. Our faculty were like, our students need to graduate with critical thinking capabilities. They have to be able to really be skeptical of the information they're being received and being able to sort out what's true, what's false, and be willing to test out the truth and falsity of whatever they're seeing. And it turns out all of the industry partners are saying the same thing. When we hire someone, we want people with those durable skills. They're curious, they're kind, they're collaborative, they're open-minded,
it's the soft
they're
skills.
Adaptable.
Yeah.
All of these things that people want are still the things people want. And so when you say technology leader, it's almost anyone. If you have those other things, the technology will sort itself out.
There's drive, there's curiosity, being hungry.
We tell our IT students we care about attitude sometimes more so than experience. Attitude, aptitude, just for some of our student workers, we can teach you the technology, but we can't teach you that passion, the drive, and the work ethic.
I've had the privilege to work with experts, right? Incredible individual people, but then they're very micro-focused on what they do. And then I have other people that maybe don't have those great expert technical skill sets, but they're wonderful to work with, and they're not workhorses, they work with purpose, they have energy, they have drive, and they have that curiosity that is unbelievable. And those are the individuals that really excel beyond what they can see they can do. And they're always open to opportunity that's coming, so it's great.
I love that. Thank you for coming on the Public Sector Show by Tech Tables. I really appreciate the conversation.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.